This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Season 3 of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Darren Smith. Each week, we'll go in-depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent.
Well, hello, Garrett. How's it going?
It's going very well, Darren. Better than I deserve. How about you?
I don't know about that. Don't talk to Garrett that way. Better than you deserved.
Well, no, that just means it's very, very good. And I only deserve very good.
I beg to differ. I think you deserve everything. But that's exciting to hear that things are going better than expected.
You have another Script Notes shirt on. I
do.
like it.
I do. This is our subtle nudge, or not so subtle now that I'm calling it out, for people to watch the YouTube version of the show, because I try to wear film-related shirts, some which are mine and most which are not.
Not your shirts or not your films?
Uh-huh. I didn't make this shirt.
I won't ask more. I won't go deeper into that conversation.
No, I didn't make this shirt. This is a Script Notes 10th anniversary shirt that I got however many years ago their 10th anniversary was. It's still one of my favorites, so I wear it. I wear it proudly. I will say, though, I was at Universal Studios 2 weekends ago, so before we recorded the last episode. But I was there and got a handful of nods because I was wearing my Invest in Indie Film t-shirt that I made and sold to myself, and it was like, okay, cool. I'm among my people, because they're all like, man, I like that shirt, man. That's good. Where'd you get that shirt? So there we go.
Okay, well, I think we're laying the foundation for the Truly Independent swag shop at some point, merch store.
There you go. When the demand shows up, we will meet it. How about that?
In the meantime, why waste time with that when we could be recording episodes and writing and focusing on season 3?
Exactly. I'm not here to sell t-shirts. I don't know. Okay, we got a fun topic today. I'm excited, and it's very timely. And so today we're talking about the Sizzle. We're talking about the proof of concept, the short teaser, whatever you want to call it. We're going to stick with Sizzle today. And the idea of like what goes into a Sizzle, what is the goal of a Sizzle, why would you do one? All those questions and more will be answered today on Truly Independent. So, Garrett, give us a little update. You dropped a bomb on us last week. We started and kicked off season 3 because, you got into development on your next project. And so do you have any updates on the script writing process or the development process that's currently underway?
Oh, well, yes. Thank you. Since you've asked, yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a productive week. You and I talked last week about me starting this new script. I think I had, I kind of went through the process of having an outline down. And then this past week, it's been just kind of dialed in. We're in the mode of getting up early, getting some pages written each day. And I'm pleased to report I'm at page 95 right now, which is fun. And it's just knowing that, hey, probably none of these pages will stick, but we're just getting them out there and getting them into a place where I can organize and kind of really polish them. But to be at 95 non-blank pages is where I want to be right now.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You're making good progress, because I think last week you were at about 10 to 12. You're flying home, the 2 days before the last episode. So you're cranking out 10 pages a day. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, it feels good. And I've just committed to say, hey, before I go to bed each night, I need to be at this certain page count. And so it's a matter of, staying up late or taking my laptop to bed, or just staying focused during the day and getting those pages done.
Well, and for you listeners that have not worked with Garrett, I don't know that I've met a harder working individual. And when Garrett sets his mind to something like, I'm going to do 10 pages a day. You better believe like he's not going to bed until he does 10 pages a day. Like that's just how Garrett is. So that's very exciting. I'm not surprised, but I'm also like, dang, that's impressive. That's 95 pages in like 10 days is that's a fast clip for writing a script. So is it a function of you had a good outline, you had like your 90 beats, or is it like the fact that it's a true story and based on a true story, so you kind of had some of the story and the structure already there for you?
Well, I think, Darren, that it is a fast pace, right? But it has been a mindset of, look, when we're on set, we're shooting 8 to 10 pages a day. And if I can't write that, then I'll tell you what enables us to shoot 8 to 10 pages a day is thorough prep. And I think that's the same thing for writing. So we say, if I'm not able to write 8 to 10 pages a day, I haven't done enough prep. And that's researching the story, building out the story matrix, kind of that beat tree that we talked about in last episode. And with those things, that's been 100% what's enabled me to be able to write these 10 pages a day.
Nice. One last question, then we'll move on to Sizzle. But are you thinking in terms of scenes when you're writing, or is it just page count? Like, are you going, okay, this is a 5-page scene, this is a 3-page scene, this is a 2-page scene, and now that's my 10 pages? Or how do you think of scenes in this context?
I am paying attention to scenes and kind of focusing and saying, okay, pacing wise, we need a quick upbeat now, and then plot wise, we need to now really kind of get into the mindset of these characters, and so that'll be a 5 minute scene or a 6 minute scene, and I'll do page count there. I'm not like scientific about it or really really precious about it. If a scene's running short or long, I don't try to force it, but I do pay attention to that. Say, okay, we need to be this. Let's be within this range.
Yeah, exactly. All right, very cool. Well, I'm excited to read whatever draft you end up sending my way, whether it's this first draft or a revised first draft or whatever comes my way. But I know a little bit about the story. I'm excited to see how this one comes together for you. So let's talk about
Okay.
sizzles today, Garrett. You've done sizzles. I have not done a sizzle. Well, that's not true. I have done a sizzle for a TV show that we did a pilot for, but instead of a full pilot, we did about a 7-minute sizzle. So we have some experience here. Have you done more than the one you did for Carpenter, or is that really like the one experience of doing kind of a sizzle that you've had?
No, I've done several, and I'm trying to think for each of my films that have gone through and received funding. As much as I've kind of not fought it, but tried to avoid, putting that energy and effort into a sizzle. I mean, I think the majority of my films, Saratov and Freetown and yeah, and The Carpenter and Faith of Angels even had some sort of sizzle before funding went through on it,
That's right.
and they in quality and execution. But at some point, like video is put to music, put to titles, put to images, and it creates a sizzle that people go, "Oh, okay, I'll get behind this."
Well, let's talk about the two that you/we have done together. So with the Carpenter, you went out, you had a decent budget, you spent time and you had a crew and you had a cast, and you had a location, and you traveled there and you put together a really solid, like, this is what the movie could look like level sizzle. And with Faith of Angels, we were up, if I'm assuming the same thing that you're thinking of, we went up and we interviewed one of the actual people from the actual events. And, in the moment, in a mine, deep in a mine, we pull out our cell phones, and me and the production designer are filming while you're asking questions. And that kind of turned into a sizzle of sorts. And so let's talk about, first off, what is a sizzle? Let's get into why you would use one, and then we can ask more questions there. But like, these are two different things. One had a big budget, one had no budget, and you took our footage and you put some music and some subtitles on it and called it good. So what is a sizzle, Garrett?
I've used it, Darren. I've used a sizzle in that term and saying, look, what is this visual element, this very short sample of what this movie is going to feel and sound and look like and present? And so, yes, for Faith of Angels or for an independent movie, and I've done this before, where it has been cell phone video of either a subject of the film or a location or something with titles and music and tone that presents almost as teaser trailer on what the movie is, and then as you've described all the way up to The Carpenter, where it was, this couple $100,000 budgeted sizzle where we shot for several days and pre-produced and did essentially a short film, and it had a 6-minute collection of key scenes from the movie that show to potential investors or distributors really, again, what this movie is. um, so both of those, depending on whatever level they are, I mean, we're calling those sizzles.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It totally did. I'm going to add to it as well. So I've been involved with, I guess, two of these now. I've done a couple of short films, but none of them were really sizzles in the sense that we're talking about them. And I like the term proof of concept for what I'm about to say,
Yeah.
because really they're often used to convince someone, to show someone that you can do what you're promising you can do. Right? When you're going out and raising money for a movie, when you're trying to attract an actor and say, look, I'm a director worth working with. I know how to tell a good story. I know how to get emotion on screen. I know how to get the right look. A lot of times, an actor, I'm thinking specifically of John Michael Finley for Faith of Angels, we sent him that sizzle. And I think that was part of what made him feel really comfortable coming out and doing the movie with us, because he goes, oh, Garrett gets it. Right. And you and I have had this conversation before of like that term, oh, he gets it or she gets it. That just means that, they understand the way that we work, and they understand the way that we share values when it comes to like how film works. And so being able to show someone that you get it, that you know how to tell a good story, get emotion on screen, make something that's a production value that's worth investing in, those are to me the things you're proving in a proof of concept or sizzle. And so the other experience I had was, in 2019, in between seasons, I was working as a senior producer on Relative Race. I had someone who came to me and said, look, I've got a friend who has an idea for a TV show about dogs with interesting jobs. I was like, that sounds cool. And I was kind of in this reality TV space. And so I was an obvious choice. I had done some work with this investor before, and she's like, I'm going to back it. He's going to put some money up. We've got like $15,000, I think it was, to shoot a thing. I was like, well, you probably could. But in my world, you can't shoot an episode of TV, a full pilot episode for $15,000, because I wouldn't want to, because if I can prove that I can do it for 15,000, how am I going to ask for 2 or 300,000 or 150,000 per episode from a network?
Yeah.
If I just did it for 15, they're going to go, well, just keep doing what you're doing at 15. I'm like, but I didn't pay myself. Like, that's the ticket, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to do a full episode for 15. Plus, it was, you want to show the production value that's possible. And on a movie, if it's costing you $30,000 a day to make that movie, well, you should probably spend around $30,000 a day for your proof of concept or your sizzle, so that the production value matches. Now, you don't have to have a crew of 30 people or a cast of 20 people or whatever on set, but it should definitely look like within the same kind of budget range. And so that's why I said, look, let's do 5 to 8 minutes. Let's do some interviews. Let's do some B-roll. Let's do some music. Let's cut together something that emotionally hits all the right notes and proves that we can do something that looks like it could be on a Discovery Channel or an Apple TV or a Hulu or whatever. And that's where we ended up pitching the thing. And we got a lot of meetings, and then COVID happened. And so the whole project kind of just like got forgotten in 2020, 2021. But we were able to put a proof of concept in front of major networks, and we were taking meetings, because instead of trying to stretch 15,000 into a full half hour or hour long episode, we did like a 4 or 5 minute sizzle, and it worked. And so those are my experiences with it. But I kind of agree with you. It's a way to show visually, this is what we're trying to make.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure when we do sizzles, we talk about, oh, okay, showing what it is. We need to be real clear that it is not a trailer. You're not making a teaser, or you're not making a trailer for the movie. So I feel like that a good sizzle does tell the story and not just the hook of the movie. You're not asking the audience to ask questions. You're asking the audience to know the story. Like, oh, okay, that's great. I want to be a part of that. And Angel Studios has a lot of has their torch program, right, where you make torches. And that's one of the things that they are very clear on. I say, look, telling this torch don't send in a trailer for your movie. Like, you show us what the movie is in a condensed period of time. Mike, so that's kind of the
Yeah.
definition. Now, Darren, as a producer, how do you, or what's your take on how much money to spend? We have a very limited amount of money to make an independent film, right? You're dealing with $1 to $2 million budgets, and now we want to take 30,000 a day and film a sizzle. But you mentioned, like, hey, we didn't even use the main star of the movie in the sizzle. We used it to get the main star. So how do you justify spending that much money?
Yeah. So I have two answers to this. First is I'm big on development. I would prefer that every movie that I work on has a 10% of the budget is set aside for development. And that's a certain amount of time as well. It's not just the money. So on $1 million budget, I'm literally saying we should spend $100,000 on development. And that can include everything from the script writing process to the sizzle to, the kind of trips that you took, like going out and doing a location scout or those types of things, pre-production, like pre-production. So I'm saying 10% of the budget and 3 to 6 months at least of time so that you can develop it into a story that's worth telling and investing all the money into. So that's one answer. But the other one is, well, it depends on where you're at in the process. Because if you have an investor who's like, hey, I'm ready to put up $1 million and that's the budget for the movie, you kind of don't need a sizzle, because who are you trying to convince? Like, who are you trying to show or prove something to? You've already proved it through your name, your brand, the story, the script, whatever it is that you sent. And so you didn't need a sizzle in order to get to the next milestone. I think sizzles are often used to get that next milestone. So maybe you got a little bit of development money, or you put up a little bit of your own money. So you're going to do a sizzle, and that's going to be something, an asset that you can use to go and attract cast, go and attract a writer, go and attract an investor, go and attract a distributor. Like we did, actually, I did another sizzle, like a proof of concept back in 2015. It was an 8-minute thing that we took to AFM. The entire goal of spending $15,000 to make this thing was to have something visual to show at AFM, which set us apart from everyone else. And it was helping us get the next milestone of, we want a sales agent and we want investors. And so I think two ways to answer that. One is, if it's part of the development process, it's going to help you get to the next phase, then great, and invest in it. But if you don't need it, I don't think it's a required step in the process of making an indie film.
Is it recoupable?
Oh, that's a big question. And I'm going to say it depends. So you can recoup if you have an audience, right? If you have an audience of people that is going to line up and set their calendars and show up at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday for the drop on YouTube, yeah, you could probably get a little bit of money off of that. I know people who have done that, or who have raised money on a Kickstarter to do a proof of concept. So
Yeah.
You're bringing in your earliest backers or your earliest investors on a WeFunder or Republic type crowd fund raise.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's easier to pre-order those types of things or pre-fund those things than recoup them, because there really isn't a market for short proofs of concept sizzles, right? Like, those are expected to be free. You don't pay money to go to a festival to watch short films, generally speaking. They're just part of the programming. And so I would say no, but you got to think of it in different terms of, oh, we didn't recoup directly by selling this thing, but the sizzle got us the budget, got us the actor, got us the distributor, whatever it is, and it did its job, and the value is inherent there, as opposed to a monetary value directly from selling or streaming or the purchases of the thing.
Yeah. I agree, Darren. I know I kind of put you on the spot on that question.
I like it.
And you answered it like a true pro. And I would agree with what you've said. I think, I mean, it depends on the budget. If you say, hey, how much did we spend on the sizzle for Faith of Angels? I don't know. We spent whatever we spent, it was out of our own pockets. And yet, when the movie was funded, all of those resources went to recoup production expenses for the script and sizzle and development and things like that. And so, yeah, you're right. You're not selling. There's no transaction in which the sizzle is being paid for. But if it's part of the development cost of the movie, it's 100% within that budget.
Yeah.
It
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have kind of a framework or a system for doing sizzles? Is there a trailer is pretty standardized, right? It's 2 minutes or so or less, sometimes two and a half, some rarely three, but like 2 minutes. It's going to set the musical, emotional tone. It's going to give you some of the biggest shots and the biggest moments, and also tell you kind of what the story is that they're setting up the promise so that they can pay it off with the movie when you buy a ticket. Do you have do you, Garrett, have a framework or a system or a standardized way of putting a sizzle together, or is it different for every project?
Oh, that's a good question. And no, there's no stand. I don't have a standard or framework. I've seen some distributors go, okay, we're going to cut a trailer, and they immediately go to minute 7 and 11 and 22, and you go, okay, and you can tell. So that is not the approach with the sizzle. But I do, generally, you want to say what is the hook for this movie and how is it paid off, and like those two elements of the sizzle. So if I have a script, I'll look for the hook in the movie, the payoff, and then what are three beats or three visual elements, not quite trailer moments, but at least three different locations or looks that you go, okay, great, there's some depth and some meaning to the movie that we're going to watch. So for Carpenter, we showed, hey, this movie's about fighting, this movie has Jesus in it, and then we showed a chase scene and like a healing moment and this subplot that didn't actually make it in the end of the film, but or in the final film, but this subplot between maybe the corrupt brother of this fighter, right? And that was kind of our sizzle moment. And we filmed for 3 days. We filmed those moments, created its own script. I mean, the sizzle does need to have a script. You're not just randomly shooting. You know, if you're spending money, not just randomly shooting whatever you can capture. Like we designed shots and said, how are we going to approach this as it's a standalone sizzle, standalone piece,
Yeah.
and then we were able to execute there.
So is it typical to base the content of the sizzle on like from the script that you've written?
Yeah, yes, if there's a script, for sure, definitely, because those are going to be the key moments. It's funny that we're talking about this today, Darren. This morning I got a call from a contact who that I've been working with for a little bit to develop a movie. It's their concept. They were pitching me and approaching Three Coin Productions, and so we're being very helpful in supporting them in that. And they said, "Hey, we'd like to do a sizzle," and they do not have a script yet, but because we've been developing their pitch package and their materials that they're using to raise money, we're very familiar with the story. And so they said, "Will you please write a script for the sizzle?"
Hmm.
So that's one thing we say. Okay, I know the story, and anybody can do this. You know the story, so you think, okay, what is the inciting incident? What's on page 7, page 11? What are these pages? And pull moments from those, write those moments out, and that'll become uh, this 8 to 10 page sizzle script.
Nice. Okay, interesting. So if I'm sitting here thinking that, like, if I'm a listener of this show, I've never done a sizzle before, and I'm trying to go, do I do one or not? I think we've kind of answered that question. But if you don't have the money, if you're sitting here going, man, 30 or 100K to do a sizzle is a lot of money, I could make a whole movie with that,
Hmm.
right? So maybe the consideration is, what if I do one of these sizzles where I'm just pulling shots from movies that have already been created? Or at this point, going in and using a generative AI tool that can do video, and why not just generate shots that way for $20 a month compared to hundreds of thousands of dollars, as we've been talking about, or tens of thousands of dollars. What's been your experience with that? I think most directors probably did their first sizzle by pulling from 8 or 10 movies that they love, that they want their movie to look like, and they go, it'll look and feel like this. Have you
Yeah,
found success with those? What are your thoughts on those? And is that an okay approach, or does it not serve as well?
I think that I think what you're describing is more, in my consideration, more of a lookbook
Hmm.
than a sizzle for your movie, which is fine, which is great. If I'm hiring a director or if I'm a director wanting to be hired, I'm going to read a script, and you're right, I'm not going to spend any money other than my own sweat equity to show whatever producer is that I know what the look and feel of this movie should be. And so, yes, I'm going to do a rip reel from other movies and sources, and even stock footage to show them, say, this is the look and feel, this is what I'd like to execute as a director. I'd be real careful about the AI thing. Again, if you're saying that as a sizzle, I think part of the sizzle is showing what we can execute. And so, hey, this is what we're able to do. Now, if you're a first time director, you've got a lot to prove. Like there's a lot riding on a sizzle. Say, hey, we can execute that. If you've done a number of these films and within the budget range that your next project is going to be, maybe that sizzle isn't as important to show your skill set because you've already proven that, but it is just maybe to show the concept and that you have a grasp on the story.
Yeah. I'm going to give an alternate take when it comes to the AI stuff because I've seen sizzle reels or lookbook reels that have been cut together by directors and said this is the sizzle for our movie. And I watch it and I go, you don't know the difference between a very flat, bright image and one that's very contrasty and dark and cinematic because you're cutting the two together as if they're one movie and it just doesn't visually make sense. And I've seen that happen. I've seen musical choices that don't match the visuals, for me at least. And as a producer looking at it with kind of an eye towards, do I want to work with this director? A lot of times the answer is no, for the reasons I just stated. Like if it's inconsistent and if it kind of shows the director doesn't have a consistent image idea for this movie, then I'm like, I don't think it's going to work out. If you're a director and you learn how to prompt an AI tool to give you consistent output, cinematic lighting, cinematic music that matches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to me, that shows one of the key things a director needs to be able to do, which is express what they want to see. Because you're going to be doing that to actors, you're going to be doing that to production designer, to a costume designer, to a cinematographer, to a gaffer. Like there's a whole crew of people that you have to be able to say, I want it to look like this. I want to be on this size lens. I want to be here. I want to track from here to here. And I want these things to happen on set. And if you can't do that, then that's, one of the most important things that you do as a director. So I haven't seen any yet. I haven't seen any directors send me a fully AI generated sizzle or lookbook reel, but I'm curious to see how I feel, how I react when one does come across my desk, because it might be a better way to show that you've got some chops as a director.
Yeah, it's an interesting take, and I think where you have to make sure that there's no gap is in between what you're creating with AI, and then if that's going to be part of the process of the movie, or if you are going to match that production value and quality and execution as a director, because writing out a prompt and talking to a crew of 30 people is an entirely different thing. And it's even okay if the director knows, hey, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. But then to know how to execute that or to correct it when it's wrong is a different skill set.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I at the end of the day, Darren, I mean, it's kind of like we always say, hey, nobody's ever made this movie before, right? So you don't know if the sizzle is working for the movie that you're currently making, and you're going to do that via AI and it works. Great, let's talk about it. I want to hear why it worked.
Yeah. I will second what you said though, which is if someone came to me and said this is the movie we're going to make and didn't say it's not going to be AI though, it's going to be live action, I'd be worried that they were pitching me an AI generated movie, which I'm not interested in making. And so in that same breath is like, hey, here's a lookbook I put together. I used AI, but we're going to, ultimately film this with cameras and actors and people and sets and all that stuff. Okay, great. Then I can look at it from a lens of this is visually and emotionally what they're after. Cool. As opposed to this is a version of the end product that they're trying to get funded.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
In the vein of still talking about the script, breaking down the script and things like that, the sizzle, even shooting a sizzle, is very, very helpful in that breaking down the script process and saying, okay, as a director, I'm going to go out with my iPhone, and whether this is the sizzle or not, but at least just like shooting very basic concept scenes of movies that are in your script can be incredibly helpful. I've found it helpful when I'm at different locations or things like that. Even if I'm with my DP or not, opening up the iPhone, putting on the Artemis or some other lens identifier, and testing out angles. Say, okay, if we shoot here and here and here from across the room, and then close up and wide, then it's a great tool in helping to communicate what we're trying to deliver. So I don't know, Darren, that probably doesn't fit in the sizzle topic, but it's kind of in that same approach to using these tools, whatever you have, to maybe solve some of the problems that might come up in making the film.
Yeah, it's really smart. Especially, you've talked about this before of like sometimes you've done short films just to try out a style or a technique, and you can do that in these sizzle reels as well and go, wow, that camera movement really worked in the sizzle. I want to replicate it with the bigger, better camera lenses, lighting, and crew that we have at our disposal on set, but we know we know we can pull it off. But I also think that sizzles are important because, and this is probably another episode that we're going to do very shortly, which is your marketing should be starting right now. Like if you're making a sizzle, if you're writing your first, 10 or 100 pages of your script, like you should be marketing that thing and telling people about it, because right now it's free. You can just post things on the internet and tell people this is coming and I'm working on this. You don't have to, have a release date and a poster yet, but you can definitely say, this is what I'm working on today. And I'm gearing up to do the sizzle. And here's a location I found. And here's some pages I wrote today. And I'm really happy with this interchange between these two characters or whatever it is. So a sizzle is a great marketing tool, not just to get your investment or your distributor or your actor that you're trying to get, but to tell the audience, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to make. And we're in the process of doing that. We're using this sizzle to get these things, follow along, make sure you have a page for your business or for the movie, a way to capture emails, like all those things come into play. And you can say, hey, you want to watch the sizzle? Put in your email. And then you're building your list from day one. So throughout this season of development and, getting into pre-production, I'm going to be harping on marketing, because we can't forget to do that part. That's half the success of your film. Caution side, the caution.
I can see where you're saying, I can see why you want to do that. Yeah. And maybe that's all I need to say, but I'm not going to, because you know me and we could talk. As long as you don't like make I don't know what the term is, but you become your own, you start to believe your own hype, or you become your own, hype man. And then you don't deliver the film, or the audience gets fatigued, and you're like, oh, this is our sizzle, and this is page one, and this is what the title page looks like, and this is the shoes I'm wearing today, and this is like, come on, guys, just make the movie, So that's probably the difference. That's probably that balance between the director side and then your side, the producer side, and saying, look, we have got to build this audience, which is the right mindset. But as a director, please protect yourselves to say the images that you're putting in front of an audience are going to represent the film, even those early images. So if it's sizzle, you better put serious watermarks and even time code window and things like that. Make them know, hey, this is not the movie. You are on the inside of this. All right, you're part of this team that's building this, and not like, here's this underdeveloped shot we did.
Yes, I support those things, and I think that is part of the marketing. You're very clear at like, this is what this is. It's not the movie. And I think you said it perfectly, which is like, use it as exclusive stuff for your top fans, and get those top fans on an exclusive part of your email list, a VIP group on your email list, and saying, look, you're the only ones that get this. This isn't going on Instagram and YouTube for the masses, because they won't get it. If it comes up in someone's feed, they don't have context. But if you've been teasing it for 2 months saying, hey, we're making the sizzle, hey, we're editing the sizzle, hey, we're in final color for the sizzle, it's coming out next week, make sure you're on the email list because we're only going to send it to people who are there. Well, now you're controlling the context, and you're building super fans from the earliest days of the process. I think I'm more than happy to say I'm overemphasizing the importance of marketing, but I'd much rather do that then get to 3 weeks out from release and no one has heard a peep about this movie because I've been holding it so close to the chest and so worried about people seeing it, that they're now nervous. They're like, well, why haven't we seen anything about this before? I don't know if the trailer did it for me. I'd much
Yeah.
rather have 18 months of lead up and tension building with an audience who really cares about me as a filmmaker and the other filmmakers that are involved to say, oh, I can't wait to see this movie. I'm going to tell all my friends about it because it's finally out. And that's what I'm aiming for. That's the outcome that I'm optimizing for with this whole approach.
That
So
makes sense. And Darren, you as a good producer, like who's dialed in, who controls that whole process of the film, I think, yeah, a director should trust you with that. Like, here's my raw elements. Don't, don't spoil this. And here
right.
you go.
Yeah.
I get worried about myself spoiling stuff.
Okay. So are there any other lingering questions we have about sizzles? I think we've covered quite a wide gamut as far as why you would do one, how much time and effort and money you should spend on one, what it's for, who it's for. Is there anything else? Like as far as the actual producing a sizzle, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That's the stuff that we know how to do. So I feel like we don't need to cover it because like we understand the production part. Like that season of this show is going to be very short because that's the part we all have spent our entire careers figuring out how to show up and make movies on set. It's everything else around it that is
Yeah.
sometimes foreign to us because we have overemphasized the focus on being on set.
Hopefully this is helpful to if you're considering what the next step is to get as far as breaking down a script and taking it to the next level. Sizzle is a great tool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Either I will say we used the Carpenter Sizzle. We keep referring to that. Maybe we should put a link to that in the show or something. But I don't know if you remember being on set in South Africa, sitting with our production team and watching down the sizzle and be like, okay, this is what we're creating. And they go, oh, so it was a great way to communicate. It did become kind of evolved into this lookbook. And there's a lot of value and mileage that you can get out of a well-produced sizzle.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's
I will
exciting.
this is in line with what we were talking about. Have you noticed right now they're shooting, what is it, Spider-Man, the next one, Spider-Man Home from Home or something, and they're releasing more footage online of the production process, which is really kind of neat, Darren. So it agrees 100% with what you're saying about kind of create in public and start building that audience. Obviously, fans are going to be watching this, but you see like Tom Holland in the rig swinging on the back of a truck as the truck's driving through the city. And I think that's new. It used to be this top secret thing. Nobody's going to look at what we're doing. And they're shifting and saying, let's create in public. Let's build our audience now.
Yeah.
I find that to be very fun to watch. And it's kind of baiting me for what the movie's going to be.
I love to see it. And it's creating that tension a year out or 2 years out, whenever it is, going, man, I want to see how that I just watched on social media translates to the screen. It doesn't matter what the story is. Like you're just building tension to go, that looks awesome. I can't wait to see the movie. That's the subtext that you're creating. And so it's the same idea with your sizzle. And I think that's maybe a good place to end on is to basically say, look, what is it for? Who is it for? Think of the outcome of the sizzle. What is it intended to do? Because if you just go and make one and then you have it and you go, well, now what? And you're, oh, well, I guess I'll submit it to Angel and I guess I'll put it on social media and I guess I'll show it to my investors. And like, it's not going to be super effective because it wasn't developed to be super effective. The same way you were talking earlier about how important the preparation is. I think that goes into the sizzle as well. Are you using it to raise money? Are you using it to attract talent? Are you using it to build an audience? I think it's hard to do all those things with one sizzle. So I would pick one that's your main thing. Go, this is intended to get us funding
Yeah.
from these types of individuals. And anything else that comes from it is great. That's awesome. You want those things, but you can't optimize for 3 different outcomes. You can't aim for 3 targets with a single arrow. And so it's really what it is. You get really targeted with what is this for? What's the intention behind it? Why are we going to execute it this way? Because it's going to have that sort of result with the intended audience. Even if that audience is an audience of 1 or an audience of 10 potential investors, that's okay. If it helps you get your fund raised, then you're golden and it worked. And then you can use it for marketing and other distribution and other channels, but at least make sure that it's being created with intention for an outcome, not just for fun. Just go make a short film if you're going to make something for fun. A sizzle has a little bit more intention to help you get something on the other end.
That's a good summary. Yeah. Well, and keep it up. I mean, I know that you're in talks of doing a sizzle right now. I've got one that I'm supposed to write, and that will eventually lead to shooting that. So there definitely a need for it.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited to talk more about the project when it comes together. And so I'm very big on like, don't talk about it until it's like a done deal. It's papered, it's money in the bank or those things. Cause I've certainly made that mistake early in my career. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna make this movie and it's $3 million, blah, blah, blah. And then, I'm doing the thing you warned us about, which is like, don't believe your own hype and don't drink your own Kool-Aid. Like, just because someone said, yeah, it's really cool, doesn't mean they're going to write a check for $2 million. So like, live and learn. That was my early 20s. I was young and impressionable. And so, yeah, I will talk about this next little Sizzle proof of concept project when it happens. It might be a few weeks now that we're waiting still. So good one today. I'm excited. And I would also say, if you have questions about sizzles, you're talking to two verified experts on sizzles. And so you should ask us questions and we can answer them in a later episode.
Yeah, or other questions. And again, verified expert has a little asterisk on it. It's our experience, and we'll share what our experience is. But we do have experience in these areas.
I mean, I validated you and you validated me, and so we both qualify.
We can believe each other's hype. Awesome. Thanks, Darren. Great episode. Great chatting with you. And thank you to our sponsors and our listeners.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. It's a good one.
Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying Truly Independent, please share and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the journey. Today's episode was edited by Michael Bradford and produced by 3 Coin Productions.